Research by Viktor Maximenkov. White Gods of the Middle East, from the Sumerians to the Scythians and Tartaria. Dea, the return of the fifth planet and its satellites Fata and Lucifer. According to modern science, the Sumerian civilization is one of the oldest on Earth. Because more than 6,000 years ago, a mysterious, at least for science, unique civilization appeared in the Mesopotamian region, the Sumerians, who had all the characteristics of a highly developed society. This article aims to introduce readers to the Sumerians and other white gods of the Middle East and to broaden modern knowledge through their wisdom. Not only about the past of our Earth, but also about the entire solar system, restoring those missing planets and moons that the ancients knew about. The deciphering of Sumerian manuscripts shocked researchers. To understand why the texts from Sumer caused such a reaction among scientists, it is enough to mention the information contained in the Sumerian texts that has already been deciphered by science itself. The Sumerians used a ternary numeral system, not writing, which after the Sumerians was only used in the creation of modern computers, Fibonacci numbers, and the golden ratio. The very first Sumerian civilization arose at least 445,000 years ago. The Sumerians claim this, but science refuses to believe it. The Sumerian civilization had advanced knowledge in chemistry, phytotherapy, cosmogony, astronomy, and mathematics. The Sumerians had knowledge of genetic engineering. The creation of Adam is described. The ancients had a modern state system, a jury court, elected bodies of people's deputies, and many other things that are characteristic only of modern society. The Sumerian texts contain information about the origin, development, and structure of the solar system, as well as events that are 4 billion years old. In their depiction of the solar system, which is located in the Near Eastern section of the State Museum in Berlin, at the center of the system is the Sun, surrounded by all the planets known today. In the Sumerian depiction of the solar system, there are differences, the main one being an unknown large planet between Mars and Jupiter, the 12th planet according to the Sumerian system. Beautiful examples of Sumerian sculpture created at the beginning of the 3rd millennium before Christ have survived to our time. They will help us see the inhabitants of ancient Sumer and their gods, who will have bright blue eyes and white skin. This is no longer surprising to us since we have already encountered such gods all over the world. In the articles White Gods of America thousands of years ago and Optics and Telescopes 5,300 years ago, available at the link. Let's give modern science glasses so it can see the ancient optical artifacts found worldwide, the elephant in the room. A very common type of sculpture in Sumer was the so-called adorer, a statue of a praying person with hands folded on the chest, either sitting or standing. Such statues clearly display the key features of Sumerian sculpture and depict the people of Sumer and their gods. The cornea of the eyes is made from a seashell, the iris from lapis lazuli or resin, and the eye socket is covered with rosin. As a result, there is an effect of huge eyes bulging out of their sockets, looking plaintive and at the same time frightening due to the absence of eyelids. As a result, the face takes on a serious, stern, somewhat harsh expression. Statues and their eyes rarely show distinct ethnic features. The head of a Sumerian ruler from 4,000 years ago, Chicago Museum. A Sumerian woman from 5,000 years ago, Philadelphia Museum, United States of America. A Sumerian goddess from Sharnaiden, the temple from Shar in Mari, Syria, 4,800 years ago. Another image of the goddess from Shar, a bust of a man from 5,000 years ago. Found in Iraq, Tel Agrab. Figurines from Yemen, king of Palmyra. Official science considers the Scythians a branch of the ancient Iranian peoples who migrated to the steppe north of Iran. Around 1000 before Christ, we are constantly shown the Scythians, ancient Sumerians, Turanians, Iranians, and Persians as dark-haired, non-European looking people. But let's also take a look at the ancient Persians. What did they actually look like? A mummy of an ancient Persian was discovered in the mines of Iran, and about a dozen such mummies have already been found. They don't want to disclose exact information because there is pressure and blackmail regarding the discovered artifacts, interested parties, and the concealment and suppression of facts. For instance, tombs of Persian kings' mummies were recently discovered in Iran, yet it caused little excitement. For us, the existence of such mummies is not that surprising. After all, we have already studied Russian inscriptions from that region earlier. A Russian inscription on a sundial from Nabatean Hegra, at least 2,500 years old in Saudi Arabia. An image of a Persian on tiles from the Persian palace in Susa, Elam. A classic type of slender Europoid with regular facial features, the beard is shown as light-colored. The racial type of the Persian on the palace tiles from Susa. The Persian has light brown hair and blue eyes, a Hellenistic depiction of a Persian. An image of a Persian on the sarcophagus of Alexander the Great. The hair is painted a light color. Alexander the Great strikes a Persian. An image on the sarcophagus. It is notable that the Macedonians did not see any racial difference between themselves and the Persians. A Neo-Persian image of a king, the prototype of the appearance of European medieval kings. The hair is artificially curled, in accordance with the royal fashion of that time. The Bible's ancient tradition stating Scythian is Sumerian's eldest son and Sumerian is Japheth the Aryan's eldest son is entirely accurate. Our ancestors called Mars the land of Eri. Is that where the Aryans originated? A Scythian Sumerian on a Greek vase from the 7th century before Christ and a Scythian from the 5th century before Christ with a shield. Pay attention to the hat, which can be found all over the world. I suggest that from now on we call this Scythian Tartar hat Russian. If you're interested, I recommend observing its wearers through history, as Scythians, Tatars and Russians share not just clothing, symbols and genetics, but also other factors. For historians, all of them are bearers of a single cultural tradition of the Slavs, not me. But if these were our ancestors, then they must have also carried a symbolic tradition that would accompany them in their everyday lives. Let's look at the common symbols of the Middle East, from the Sumerians to the Persians and Scythians. These are the kinds of ceramic items that have been found in this region even before Sumer, the ceramics of the Kai culture. Around 4,500 to 5,500 before Christ, these indigenous people of Mesopotamia were displaced by the Sumerians, who came from somewhere in the mountains. Swastika images are found worldwide. The ceramic piece with fish is of particular interest to us because it features an ornament made with a meander pattern which we have already seen on the Mezin bracelet described in the article at the link. In 1908, on the territory of the Russian Empire, a calendar dating back 20,000 years was found, which unites and explains many calendar systems that later spread throughout the earth. Now let's look at the image of a pine cone. Pineal glands often appear among the Sumerians and other peoples, Rome, Egypt, Greece, Mesopotamia, and India. The griffin is a symbol that was widespread everywhere up until the 17th century, including in Tartary, Greece, Egypt, Etruria, India, Assyria, and China. The flag of Tartary, China, Tartary. Scythian gold, animal style and temple decoration. Pay attention to the numerous images of griffins. The unified secret script of the warrior class of the past, fragments of which modern people know as Arabic script, which directly points to the knotted writing of the ancients, was once widespread throughout the earth. To represent the ternary system, it is very convenient to use knotted writing, which in essence is a ternary code, similar to modern computers. This corresponds to the structure of nature itself, in which everything is based on volume. You can learn more about knotted writing in the previous article, Knotted Writing of the Slavs, about the writing system of the whole world, by following the link. I would also like to remind readers about the legend of the Tower of Babel, which gives us all a hint that in the past there was not only a single writing system on Earth, but also a single language, as is directly stated there. Linguistic Map of Asia. In the year 1730, there was its own script in Siberia, the Avestian script. There is an exhibition of finds from excavations in Archaim, the Andronovo culture, 5,000 years old, at the Archaim Museum. a fragment of a tablet with the same script which speaks of its ancient continuity in Siberia, Siberian inscriptions on the Pishma River near Tobolsk. From the Vedic culture of the Siberian Scythians, which would later be destroyed everywhere and called pagan, branched off the religious systems of the ancient world, such as Zoroastrianism. Here is an early depiction of Zarathustra himself. He is wearing a hat that could be called a Scythian Tartar Russian hat. And here it begins. The most interesting thing about our ancestors is that even if the spoken language was the same, the writing was different. The priests had their own script. Priestly writing, the sacred Russian alphabet, a 7x7 matrix. Merchants used a different script called the Glagolitsa Lititsa. Ordinary workers in everyday life used a simpler script, and so on. The warriors had their own script. It was this warrior script that became the prototype for Sogdian, that is, Avestan and Arabic scripts. That's why, before the Romanov era, all Russian Tsars had Arabic script on all their weapons and armor. This warrior heritage of the Scythians was observed steadfastly. A replica of the old Russian weapons displayed in museums is often covered with Arabic inscriptions, Arabic script. Ivan Grozny's helmet features the words Allah Muhammad with a Russian inscription below. Helmet of Prince Ivan Vasilievich, Grand Prince, son of Vasily Ivanovich, sovereign of all Rus, autocrat and helmet. This is not a greeting. Alexander Nevsky's helmet features mainly Quran quotes and carries on military traditions from the Siberian Scythians. It was crafted by renowned Russian armorer Nikita Davidov. For those who are interested, I highly recommend reading Vashkevich's books such as Systemic Languages of the Brain, Abracadabras, and others. He clearly and precisely presents all the Arabic language's semantic concepts from Russian and explains why this occurs. The thing is, a person receives information from left to right from the divine source, symbol A, and understands information from right to left, symbol Ya. That is why our ancestors used to write and read in all directions and in volume using not writing. Here are some examples. We read the Quran and in reverse it becomes Narok Narok, which is a code of rules and laws like a modern covenant. Modern historians try to convince us that medieval Arabs literally flooded Rus with their weapons, which Russian warriors proudly wore. They reportedly didn't understand the complex Arabic inscriptions on their shields, armor, or swords. They went into battle and died under some supposedly completely foreign and incomprehensible religious formulas and prayers. It's a completely absurd picture. Russian warriors of that era understood perfectly well what was written on their weapons. In Rus's, several alphabets and languages were used until the mid-17th century, including the one that is considered Arabic today. The arrival of the Antiochian Patriarch Macari in Russia in the middle of the 17th century was for collecting donations and for judging Patriarch Nikon. Quite an Arabic script, an example of the interconnection between Sanskrit, Russian, and Arabic words. In Ugon, Ogon, Oni, in principle they all sound about the same. Not so long ago, by modern standards, in Hordrust not only Slavic script was used but also Arabic. Russians, up until the end of the century, were fluent in the Turkic language in everyday life, meaning Turkic was still the second spoken language in Rus's, until the Romanovs, who came to power in 1613, began to impose the myth of the Tatar-Mongol yoke in Rus and contempt for everything Tatar. Let me remind you that the original homeland, the cradle of many peoples, was Siberia, which logically follows from the experience of involving paleoclimatology, paleogeography, paleoepigraphy, and so on in the study of this question. It was from Siberia that the Slavic Aryans spread throughout the world. Our ancestors actively introduced nomadic tribes living side by side with them all over the world to agriculture and crafts. At a certain stage, this led to an explosive increase in their numbers and then to aggressiveness. That is why the Great Turan Belt was created, stretching from the present-day Japanese islands along the Great Wall of China to the Tian Shan and the Caucasus, and then the Serpent's Ramparts all the way to the British Isles. In this way, our ancestors separated the area of their settlement from the area of settlement of other peoples. It was from the time of the Great Turan that Scythian military attributes gradually became established on weapons and uniforms, and that ancient symbolism is now used by many countries. The Cossack letter in 3 scripts shows with arrows the atavism of Sogdian Arabic. It emphasizes Cossacks, boyars, our opponents, pray for the Tsar, but beware of the boyars. Fear, Cossacks, lawlessness, and rulers. Cossacks, do not divide and do not scatter. Observe my laws and commandments. A sample of Polustav, cursive and ligature from the Buzlaevsky Psalter, 1470-1490 atavisms of ancient writing from Akkadian and Arabic ligature in a Russian manuscript of the 15th century. It is emphasized, Cossacks give 1/3 of their earnings to the treasury. The army teacher put in the circle to teach literacy to girls and boys. The circle contains the school and the teacher arms the army. As we can see, the so-called wild barbarians had writing, schools and teachers. And it was the Cossacks who preserved this way of life of the Scythians almost until our times, but over the past 100 years, this has been purposefully and thoroughly forgotten. As they say, we were meant to forget, and the Scythians became a mysterious, vanished people again. Here's what the book Scythians, Builders of the Step Pyramid says. Tamara Tilbot Rice, born in 1904 and passed away in 1993, née Abelson, who immigrated from Russia in 1917. The Scythians disappeared from the pages of history as suddenly as they appeared, as if they had fallen into a deep well, and although they themselves vanished, they stirred the waters of history. The waves spread almost throughout all of Europe, and it is hardly surprising that they had the greatest influence on Russia, where their smooth and dynamic lines are noticeable even in our time. The Amudarya region and the Khanty-Mansi Autonomous Okrug. The main military symbols of the Scythians also included the falcon, the winged leopard, the griffin, serpent motifs, the sun and its substitute, the cross and the crescent moon, which later became established in Muslim countries. The personal standard of Bohdan Khmelnytsky is on the right, recently restored. The Cossacks honored their ancient symbols. Pay attention not only to the crescent symbol, but also to the so-called Arabic script on the Cossack flags. Let's take a closer look at the crescent symbol. Since the Sumerians had discovered and deciphered records about events from the past that took place hundreds of thousands of years ago, we can assume that the crescent symbol, this is the Earth's first moon, Lelia, which perished in a catastrophe, along with Daria 111,000 years ago. According to the information described in the Vedas, the goddess Astarta Shumer is kept in the Louvre Museum with an image of the Lelia moon on her head, white skin and blue eyes. That's how the gods look among the Sumerians. As confirmation of this, the Sumerians themselves had a 7-day week. We have the same kind of week nowadays, as well as the system based on 60. The system of calculating time by the deities, in order of importance. Deity, planet, day of the week. 1. Shamash, the sun, Sunday. 2. Sin, the moon, Monday. 3. Nergal, Mars, Tuesday. 4. Nabu, Mercury, Wednesday. 5. Marduk, Jupiter, Thursday. 6. Ishtar, Venus, Friday, and 7th, Ninib, Saturn, Saturday. It was Jupiter, also known as Marduk, that was called majestic, just like this planet, the largest in the solar system. Since in Sumer itself there are images showing another moon of the Earth, Lelia, with an orbital period of 7 days, there are a huge number of such images everywhere. You need to understand that symbols like the stone, the alatir, and the 8-pointed star all represent the sun. There are 4 main men's holidays and 4 women's holidays in a year. In various articles I have repeatedly drawn your attention to this symbol. The crescent and the 7 dots next to it represent Earth's first moon, Lelia, and its 7-day cycle. In the image, the creature is depicted in an animalistic style, like in Egypt. The moon as a crescent, 4 rays and 4 waves, or a full disk above the crescent. This shows Lelia's crescent isn't Earth's moon. The fact that the month has a cycle of 28 days is indicated by the fact that they are all depicted together in the images, in the most visible form of the sun from Earth. A star with 8 rays, the moon with a cycle of 28 days, 4 rays and 4 waves, and the moon Lelia as a crescent with 7 dots nearby. This image clearly shows the knowledge of the Sumerians. You can see the sun depicted as a circle with 8 rays. The main holidays of the moon, Earth, Lelia, and month. Then comes Mars, followed by the asteroid belt, where the fifth planet should be, but there are only fragments and moons, Lucifer, then Jupiter and Saturn with rings. And it's simply impossible to see this without a telescope. Whether we can consider the images of people as planets is an open question, but if so, then all the planets known today are depicted here. If the first person is Mercury, the second is Venus at the end of the image, then the third person is Uranus, and the fourth person is Neptune. Compare this with today's image from Wikipedia. But the Sumerians also had advanced optics, which I wrote about in my article at the link Optics and Telescope 5,400 years ago. I've already discussed similar images of celestial objects more than once in my previous articles at the link from Lani, the second moon of Earth, Fata, the return from the abyss of the sea, and millennia of darkness, another unified priestly tradition from our Paleolithic ancestors 24,000 years ago to today. Or where did the second moon go? Fata? Next, we reveal the secrets of the Mali discs and the Phaistos disc, which are 3,900 years old. Also, the knowledge of the Sumerians and the discoveries of modern scientists allow us to remember the fifth planet of the solar system. Modern astronomical laws confirm that there should have been a planet between Mars and Jupiter that was twice as large as Earth. The Sumerians called this mysterious planet Nibiru, which means the crossing planet, referring to the orbit of this planet. A highly elongated ellipse crosses the solar system once every 3,600 years. The next passage of Nibiru through the solar system is expected between the years 2100 and 2158. And from Sumerian chronicles, we learn that the planet Nibiru was inhabited by sentient beings called Anunnaki, whose lifespan was 360,000 Earth years. They were true giants. Their women were 3 to 3.7 meters tall, and their men were 4 to 5 meters tall. And traces of such large people are found all over the world. We also see this in medieval paintings and in many other places in the records of the Earth. The fifth planet of the solar system has a name, and it has two satellites, Fata and Lucifer, according to information from the same records. The satellite Lucifer is the morning star. The ancient translation of the name was destroyed during the galactic war of the past. As for myself, I changed my position in movement, or alternatively, the dimension or space of my location. Where is she now? That's unclear. The second satellite of Dei, called Fata, was moved by the ancients into Earth's orbit because it was inhabited and had 50 seas on its surface. Fata, also known as Dei, was moved into Earth's orbit by the ancients due to its inhabitants and 50 seas. Until recently, this was just a legend from the past. But my research helped to identify, by the orbit of the pre-flood Earth, a second moon, Fata, with a rotation period of 13 days and the presence of information about this moon in all ancient calendars around the world, from America to Siberia. In my articles Atlani, the second moon of Earth Fata, Return from the Abyss, Seas and Darkness of Millennia, the unified priestly tradition of our ancestors from the Paleolithic to our days, or Where did the second moon Fata go? Modern astronomers have discovered and studied a collection of fragments from some celestial body that share a common orbit, which corresponds to the orbit of an unknown fifth planet of the solar system, Dei or Nibiru, according to modern Sumerian translations. The only problem for science was that all the fragments from the asteroid belt, which is located just beyond the orbit of Mars, when combined into a single object, would be smaller in size than our present-day moon. The moon is a problem for science to understand. For us, this is yet another confirmation of the ancient legend about the lost satellite Lucifer. So we can now confidently say that we have found two satellites of the fifth planet and the planet itself in ancient times, Lucifer. Its fragments make up the asteroid belt in the place of the fifth planet. Fata was moved into Earth's orbit and perished as a result of a war with Atlania. Its fragments are scattered all over the Earth, and information about its existence has been preserved in all ancient calendars, which are more than 13,025 years old. Even more interesting discoveries were the Sumerian accounts of genetic experiments and the entire process of creating humans, or the process of mixing divine and earthly components. The process of in vitro fertilization is described in detail on clay tablets and depicted on cylinder seals in Sumerian chronicles. This information literally shocked modern geneticists. The ancient Hebrew Bible, the Torah, which originated on the ruins of Sumer, attributed the act of creating man to Elohim, a word that sounds very similar to Allah. This word is given in the plural and should be translated as gods. Well, the purpose of creating man is defined very precisely. There was no man to till the earth. That in fact is why man was created. As for which peoples belong to him now, that needs to be figured out. I would like to draw the reader's attention to the fact that, according to the Bible, man was created on the sixth day of creation from carbon. There was only one. On the sixth day, man and woman were created separately, Adam and Eve. On the seventh day of creation, from silicon, clay, and the DNA of the gods. Take any book on agriculture, and you will see that the basis of all life on Earth is carbon. What did these gods look like? That's another question. Maybe like the figurines found in the same Middle East, but I can't say for sure. And so, the main Anunnaki scientist, Enki, decided to create Adam. This word comes from Adama, meaning earth, and it means earthling. Enki decided to use upright, anthropomorphic beings that already lived on Earth and improve them enough so that they could understand commands and use tools. They understood that the earthly hominids had not yet gone through evolution, so they decided to speed up this process. In the Torah, Enki is called Nahash, which translates as serpent snake, or the one who knows secrets and mysteries, and the emblem of Enki's cult center was two intertwined snakes. In this symbol, one can see a model of the DNA structure, which Enki might have deciphered as a result of genetic research. Enki's plans included using the DNA of primates and the Anunnaki themselves to create a new race. Biorobots that no one feels sorry for and that serve one interesting function: mimicry. Whoever they live next to, that's who Enki's helper children start to resemble. He attracted a young beautiful girl named Ninti, the lady who gives life. Later, this name was replaced with the pseudonym Mami, the prototype of the universal word mama. The chronicles provide instructions that Ninti gave. First of all procedures must be carried out in completely sterile conditions. The Sumerian texts repeatedly mention that before working with clay, Ninti always washed her hands first. As the text shows, Enki used the egg cell of a female African monkey living north of Zimbabwe for his work. The successfully formed egg cell was then placed into the body of the goddess, who agreed to become Ninki. Do the chronicles describe how long the pregnancy lasted, how the caesarean section was performed, and the birth of the first biorobot, Adam? The Sumerians' claim about a heavenly battle 4 billion years ago is also very likely confirmed by science. After learning that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are tilted on their sides with satellites in a different plane, it became clear that celestial collisions have altered the solar system. So, they couldn't have been satellites of these planets before the catastrophe. Where did they come from? Scientists believe that they were formed from material ejected from the planet Uranus during the collision. It's clear that some destructive force and object collided with these planets so powerfully that it was able to turn their axis. According to modern scientists' calculations, this catastrophe, which the Sumerians called the Heavenly Battle, happened 4 billion years ago. Let's note that the Heavenly Battle, according to the Sumerians, doesn't mean the infamous Star Wars at all. We're talking about the collision of celestial bodies of enormous mass and another similar cataclysm. Let's also note that the Sumerians not only quite accurately described the appearance of the solar system before the Heavenly Battle, that is, 4 billion years ago, but also point out the causes of that dramatic period. The Sumerians were skilled travelers and explorers, credited with inventing the first ships. A Sumerian dictionary listed at least 105 ship types categorized by size, purpose, and cargo. One inscription mentions the possibilities of ship repair and lists the types of materials that the local ruler brought for the construction of his god's temple around 2200 before Christ. The range of these goods is astonishing, from gold, silver, and copper to diorite, carnelian, and cedar. In some cases, these materials were transported for more than 1,000 miles. Maybe some of the ships even had flying capabilities, since the texts themselves mention flying machines, infrastructure for their maintenance, and there are plenty of images of flying devices. The tablets mention that a god came to one of the rulers of Sumer, named Gudea, on a certain bird made of black metal. The god wore a golden helmet, apparently a spacesuit, and ordered the construction of a shelter for his flying bird. As soon as the construction was completed, the other gods began to guard it and told the people to stay away from it, so people wouldn't get caught in the fiery streams from the firebird as it begins or ends its flight. It is said that the Sumerians gave them the name Mu Plus. We have already covered information about flying machines and ancient airfields in the articles "An Airfield of Ancient Civilizations" or "Aliens" has been found. The Yundum airfield was discovered in the small African country of Gambia. Another example is "This is a complete flyby" or global unidentified flying object images. This would also explain the presence of traces of the Sumerians in America long before Columbus. I already wrote about these findings in the article "White Gods in America Thousands of Years Ago. All indigenous peoples of America are descendants from Siberia." Compare for yourself the images from America on the left and Sumer on the right. Science claims that cosmogony and cosmology first appeared in Sumer. The first collection of proverbs and aphorisms appeared. Literary debates were held for the first time. The first book catalog appeared here. The first money entered circulation as silver shekel ingots weighed by mass. For the first time, taxes were introduced, initial laws adopted, and social reforms implemented. Medicine emerged, and efforts began to achieve peace and harmony in society. The Sumerian civilization fell due to an invasion by warlike Semitic nomadic tribes from the west. Babylon rose on the shoulders of Sumer. The Assyrian civilization, by the way, is God living on earth, and Eri is the modern Irtysh river on which Asgard stands. And risks. This city and its pyramid are already 110,000 years old. Our ancestors settled there after the first moon's destruction, Lilia's land, and Arya's death. Isn't that where it's from? In Peru, the sons of the Persian king were called Darius, and the hat he wore was very similar to the Scythian Tatar Russian one, and the correct name of the empire there until recently was the Ottoman Empire. Who are the atoms in the Cossack army? I don't think that needs explaining.